Being here right now at CB and seeing how we've recruited people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. We haven't just recruited them, we've appropriately integrated them through mentorship and learning.
All of that has got to be in a community that works well. And if there's something wrong in that community or something impacting that community, it impacts everything. So I really felt that we need to be leaders of our community as much as leaders of our company.
This is Doing the Right Things Well, a podcast that features conversations with leaders of America's best managed companies. I'm your host, Michael Kelly, the Executive Director of the Drucker Institute at Claremont Graduate University. The Institute is home to nearly a century of research on modern management thinking by Peter F. Drucker and those he inspired. For nearly a decade, we have published a ranking of America's best managed publicly traded companies. We base our model on their effectiveness with Drucker's 5 key principles: customer satisfaction, employee engagement and development, innovation, corporate social responsibility, and financial strength. 250 of those companies are highlighted in the Wall Street Journal each December. There are many great stories behind the data. Our goal of this podcast is to hear those stories directly from leaders of America's best managed companies and about the significance of their work contributing to a well-functioning society. Doing the Right Things Well is made possible by Claremont Graduate University, the Drucker School of Management, and the Charles Koch Foundation. To learn more about the Drucker Institute, please visit us at druckerinstitute.com. This episode features 2 leading executives from CBRE. CBRE is a global leader in commercial real estate services and investments and operates in more than 100 countries with more than 130,000 people and $34 billion in annual revenue. CBRE plays a significant role in what Peter Drucker called a well-functioning society, a social structure where the private, public, and social sectors can simultaneously thrive and contribute to the collective good. So we know CBRE is not an overnight success. People built this company and drove its success by doing the right things well. The 2 leaders with me today are first and foremost great human beings who will share some of their insights on a broad range of topics on leadership, management, and finding career success. Lou and Jessica, welcome to the podcast, and can you please introduce yourselves?
Thank you, Michael. My name is Lou Horn. I'm the Greater Los Angeles, Orange County, and Inland Empire Group President for CBRE.
Hi, Michael. It's great to be here. My name is Jessica Lal, and I'm the Managing Director for our downtown Los Angeles office. And I oversee our civic engagement and government and higher education growth practices.
So as you know, as we talked about, each December for the past 8 years, the Drucker Institute has shared a ranking of America's best managed publicly traded companies. And the rankings we base these rankings on the core principles Peter Drucker thought an organization should focus on to achieve success. And that's customer satisfaction, employee engagement and development, innovation, corporate social responsibility, financial strength. This year, CBRE, for all 8 years, they've made the rankings, and they reached this impressive rank of 82 out of 660 companies this year for overall effectiveness in what we see as doing the right things well. Significant strides were made. You guys are 76 in employee engagement and development, 31st in corporate social responsibility, 169 in customer satisfaction, and innovation, 229, in financial strength, 18. So I want to start with Lou. When you hear these numbers, part of the podcast is we're gonna, we have all these years of data on well-managed companies, and really want to hear like the backstories. Like when you think about the significant strides CBRE is making with its growth around the globe, is like, what is driving this success?
Thank you, Michael. Well, I think there are a lot of things. First of all, what you may not realize is that we're a combination of over 100 companies that we've merged with over the last 15 or 20 years. And it's been a very strategic, thoughtful approach towards building a better company, not necessarily a bigger company. And so there's been a very deliberate focus on how do we enhance our service delivery model to all of our clients that are in the commercial real estate business. And that means we really handle everything from they're really broken up into three areas. We handle all things commercial. And so we have a group that focuses on the principal side, which is Trammell Crow, and also CBRE Investment Management Services. We have another piece that just focuses on the corporate outsourcing, which is really more people, and it's really for facilities management and also large corporate work. And then the part that Jessica and I are involved with is what we call advisory and transaction work, and it's where we do the valuations. We work with capital markets, we work with consulting, debt, office, industrial, retail, multifamily. So those three groups are really all things commercial real estate, and we handle to a scale large clients all the way down to small clients in local market areas. And all of this really is underscored with a set of values that the company holds dear. It's an acronym called RISE. It's respect, integrity, service, and excellence. And you can ask any, from the receptionist all the way to our CEO, what that acronym means, and they'll be able to tell you immediately because it's a part of our culture and a key part of the fabric of our organization.
Thanks, Lou. And Lou, you've had a stellar career there, spanning over decades. And Jessica, in a sense, you're the newbie at CBRE. And Lou, talking about values, right? You bring your own individual values you have in life of the things that you've done to get yourself to where you are. And so stepping into this position, Jessica, after being a civic and political leader and doing all the work that you did, how did some of that prepare you coming into a company that it's thriving, it's successful, has a long established culture, has a value system? How did you find that now within the first day till now? Because climbing up the rankings, you guys are obviously doing something right, and it's showing.
It's a great question. Hearing where we are in those rankings, I'm not sure if you would have told me that before coming to CB, it would have meant what it means now being at CB. And what I mean by that is we practice our values. And I think a lot of times you hear from folks, values driven, but they can't name their values and they can't actually articulate how they put their values into action. And I would say underlying what Lou just described, and Michael, what you just asked, is a focus on people and leadership and quality. And, I'm here truly because of Lou. And Lou and I met, and we spent the better part of 5 years just sort of discussing coming over here because, Michael, as you alluded, my background, I had no background truly in commercial real estate, but I did, and I see even more so now, the connection between our communities, problem solving, bringing people of different backgrounds together to problem solve, and the benefits that have not only in a business and an organization, but really at the community at large. And I know we're going to get into some more specific examples of how we've been able to build that. And I think it says a lot about a company like CBRE, about a leader like Lou, to really reach outside the industry, to bring people in, to be ahead of the curve, looking around the corner. And I think that's just being here now at CB and seeing how we've recruited people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds. But we haven't just recruited them, we've appropriately integrated them through mentorship and learning. And it's not about the knowledge, it's about the attributes, as my boss always says. And I think watching those things come into practice has really been powerful. And I think it has a ripple effect in terms of what it inspires other leaders and other business organizations to do, and look inward to be more productive outward.
Pulling on the thread here, because it's going back, everything's about, like, I really love about Drucker and Tom Peters and other things, talking about humanism. Lou, who you are today is not who you were at 20 or 25. Jessica, who you are 10 years ago is not who you are today. Is finding that alignment of, Lou, did you see something in Jessica that you saw in yourself?
Jessica was running CCA, which is it's a very important organization in downtown Los Angeles that really helps at the civic level, but also helps directly specific businesses that are occupying space in the downtown market. She had asked me, I don't know, Jessica, this is what, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, something like
2017.
2017. At the time, I was laser focused on playing a role to try to help our homelessness issue. It was clear to me that we were the number one target for foreign investment in the United States. And so LA was on fire. We had great space activity in the retail space with innovative shopping centers and full buildings. We had full office buildings. We had the biggest industrial market in the US, a very targeted, as I said, investment market, foreign capital and domestic capital. All things were really running on full cylinders, and we were doing really, really well. But if you know downtown LA, there's the downtown central business district, and then there's the arts district, which is about, I don't know, Jess, what, mile and a half away. And the arts district was this very edgy, kind of gritty market that was really starting to reinvent itself. And there was all kinds of adaptive reuse projects, and old, turn of the century warehouses were turning into office buildings and lofts for people to live. But to get there, you had to drive through about a mile and a half of what looked like a third world country. It was massive homelessness. And it just struck me that we have got to do something about this. And so Jessica came to me in her role at CCA and said, I'd like you to chair our commission on homelessness, because I was doing various things. And I'll get into that in a minute, but I was making a very, very vocal position as an executive in our community. This is something that we've got to all address, and we all need to do this and I was taking this on as our corporate social responsibility at the regional level. And so Jessica asked me to take that role, and Jessica, I'll let you take it from there.
Yes, and I remember going into that lunch, and I was so overly prepared, and I asked Lou, and I'm all in, and I keep trying to sell him, and he's like, Jessica, number one rule of sales: when you get a yes, stop talking. And it was, one of these moments where it meant so much that someone of Lou's prominence in the community would take this on. And again, going back to, I think we've seen a lot of leaders, they'll take positions and sort of wear the title, but they don't do the work. And what I was blown away by was, anyone who works with Lou knows when he's in, he's really all in, calling at all hours, getting the staff involved. And what he also did was brought the full resources of CBRE to bear. We have a world-renowned internship program that over 700 people apply for. He dedicated that entire regional program to working on building out a database of government-owned sites. He brought in Gensler architecture to look at actually doing typologies for what kind of housing you can have on these sites. He attended meeting after meeting that we helped set up at CCA, explaining to our elected officials, our policymakers, how they could in fact use these tools for free. We know government does not have the best real-time information, yet is tasked with these insurmountable tasks. And it really took fire. And I think I saw it because at CCA, we represented business organizations across LA County, was see what it did to say, hey, everyone has an expertise to lend, and we're only going to solve problems when everyone gets in and puts forward what they know, what their resources, what their expertise is, and work together. And Lou is the tip of the spear. And it really showed me the power of what a large company, when they're really actually willing to walk their talk, can accomplish, and how influential that can really be. It was really the start, I would say, of me taking that conversation more seriously about moving into the private sector, because watching Lou operate, and no one at CBRE was like, you can't do that. And that's one of the things I love about this company. We are often looked at as this 800-pound global green machine, as we've been called, but it's really nimble, it's really adaptable, and folks are looking for people to make that kind of impact in their communities, and no one's slowing you down. especially when you're having the kind of success that we were seeing when Lou and what that has sort of since transpired into through our civic engagement work more formally.
And Michael, I would just add to that, and Jessica did a great job of articulating really how we got started. She asked me to take that role, and over the course of several years, we really got to know each other. I had a tremendous amount of respect for Jessica's civic leadership and civic involvement and knowledge on getting to the right people and then formulating, requests or enlightenment that was digestible in the public sector. And what I realized, I would go to some of these meetings and I would see these public officials or these elected officials that would be trying to do the right thing, but because of NIMBY issues or because of, policy issues, were prevented sometimes from doing that. And so I really developed a deeper understanding of the civic challenges. And I realized that there's no way that this problem gets solved without a public-private partnership. It's got to be, and we've got to trust each other. And there's got to be a union where we're all on the same page and we're solving for this issue. It's a serious issue, and at the time. And so what happened was over the course of those years, I got to know Jessica, and then I started thinking, Jessica's a great leader. She has a deep understanding of things that I don't fully understand or grasp. And we had a really great working relationship. And I thought she'd be a great leader at CBRE. So it wasn't, I was on the board of CCA, and I was also in that initiative, involved in that initiative. But over time, I think we built a relationship, and I recognized that she would have great value at CBRE because I knew that we work, our work is really in an ecosystem. And when I say office or industrial or retail or multifamily or debt or all of those things that we do in building properties, managing properties, providing, guidance to, public sector investment capital, all of that has got to be in a community that works well. And if there's something wrong in that community or something impacting that community, it impacts everything. So I really felt that we need to be leaders of our community as much as leaders of our company. And so through that relationship, I was very interested in getting Jessica to play a role at CBRE. It took me a while to get her over, and she'll tell you that story, I'm sure, later.
Because what I see in this kind of is like this intergenerational mentoring is like, Lou, like who influenced you to help accelerate some of your experiences where you're still going to have some bad judgment calls that inform ultimately good judgment calls.
Sure.
And over time you get wisdom. Like, what are the things that you learned within your experiences that you're able to accelerate so with Jessica and other people that work for you around you are benefiting from?
Well, I would say the structure of the company is one where we've evolved. And when I started with the company, I've been with the company 40 years. So when I started with the company, we were much smaller. We really had one dimension. We were a brokerage company. And then from there, we really grew into this incredible full service real estate organization. And so I recognize the importance of seeing a bigger picture. And I'll speak to maybe the people that we've attracted to the company. I mean, Jessica mentioned the intern program, we're really laser focused on people with the right attributes and the right skills. And then we believe that once they're over here, if they've got the right attributes, they're highly energized, they're motivated, they've got a positive attitude, they're willing to work hard, they're team players, they don't need to hog the ball. And they've got the right skills. They can write, they can analyze, they can do whatever the functions are that we're looking for. And then over time, they'll create knowledge. And the knowledge comes with experience. And the experience really creates this evolutionary kind of ecosystem in the company. And then you talk about the structure of the company, so that's how we recruit and that's how we retain. There's this constant learning environment here. But the structure of the company is really a pretty egalitarian organization where as Jessica said, we're responsible for building our organizations, at regional levels. And our CEO, Bob Selenick, is laser focused on making sure that he's got the right people in these areas. And then he gives us the discretion to build the organization. Now we've got all kinds of tools and we've got training and we've got, we're networked and we share information and we team with other markets, and we do a lot of that, and that's all built into the system. But we really are encouraged to pass the ball back and forth with each other. But also, we're held accountable to growing our region, but then also to playing a larger leadership role in the community. And I think that freedom allows us to make mistakes and then recover from those mistakes, and not be over criticized by those mistakes. I mean, we're not perfect, but we've been given the ability to take risks, and there's several examples that we can get into later where we've been able to take risks, and the company will recognize things that are working well and then scale them all over the place and scale them all over the world. We have 600 and some odd offices, all over the world. And so we'll take a great idea and we'll scale that up if it can be applied to different places. So there really is that freedom and that discretion for us to be able to lead, given the context of doing what we're supposed to do, but then lead the way that we feel best to lead. So it's important, I think, that we lay that out, because I think everybody in this firm feels that way.
Jessica, you spent your career where you were a leader at USC, right, was a student body president. You've gotten yourself in these leadership positions, so you figured out something earlier than a lot of other people, and you worked with Central City Association, you worked within government and all that stuff. Stepping into the private sector at this level, was there anything that you kind of learned that you're surprised by in this leap that challenged you?
Well, I'm challenged every day, in a good way, and I would say several things to that. I think leadership is leadership, no matter where you are. People are people. They want to know you care about them, that you're honest, that you're going to fight for what is right and do the right thing. So I think there are definitely some consistent things. There is, I was challenged by the lack of knowledge I had coming into a role and running an office. But I think to sort of show why it works, right? Not a lot of companies can bring someone in from the outside in a management leadership role if they don't have the culture and the support systems in place to make sure that person is successful.
A big part of what we do, Michael, is our responsibility, is certainly helping play a role in the larger ecosystem of our community, but then also we manage the micro ecosystem of our organization. What that means is really drilling down and attracting and retaining the absolute best talent in the industry. And that's what differentiates us. You can expect that when you come to CB, you're going to get somebody that's professional, that's honest, that's hardworking, that's going to deliver high quality work at a very expedient point in time. And so it's really important for us to have people who are going to be able to attract and retain talent. And Jessica, describe maybe the circuitous route that you took, even once we got through some of those moments. Describe exactly what you need, your involvement in getting here, and then ultimately how that's helped you attract and retain talent.
I told Lou, I said, Lou, we're really trying to have a second child, and we've had some false starts along the way, and if this is going to be problematic, bringing me in. And he said, no, like, we are absolutely support you. You take as much time as you need, etc. And so when it actually came down to sign the contract, and Lou and I sort of shook hands, I found out a couple of weeks later that I was pregnant and that I would be needing to go out on maternity leave probably 4 to 6 weeks after I would start. And I was terrified, like, by this timing, right? Life, you can never, you make plans and God laughs, that phrase. And I remember calling Lou, and he was nothing but excited for me. And he said, do not worry. This is amazing news for your family. Everyone here will be thrilled. Let me get back to you. And he basically went back up, created a new position for me. And what ended up happening was we ended up miscarrying. And I after he had sort of redone this all, I had to call him and say, you know what, I'm actually not going to be going on mat leave. Anyway, it was this whole journey. And Lou stood by me and came back and said, you still have that managing director job. We're excited to have you. And I share that. I'm very open about this story because it's really important. And I've shared this with a lot of women in the industry who are, a lot of them, many of them in brokerage, who are very overwhelmed by family planning and working and telling people. And I'll tell you what, I went on maternity leave 7 months after I started in this job, and no one was anything but gracious and excited and supportive. And I think it's really important when we talk about women and families, right? This is not just, it impacts families. It's extremely important. And I've had conversations where women are in tears, sharing their own experience and how they felt they couldn't be so open. And so I think it's something that we continue to talk about and share, just as another point of data point and how our company operates and how we support our employees, truly, and walk the talk.
Yeah, it's a theme that I've heard too throughout when you think about hiring and the difficulty of hiring. As you know, Drucker and others will say, it is the most important thing that you do. The companies are doing the right things well when it comes to employing people, helping them develop, helping them grow, are attracting a much larger diverse pool of candidates who want to be there because they see that. Kind of what's that polling that you're doing for, diversity of people, thought, and communities and everything else back into CBRE? And once they're in there, really getting them, providing with the resources to thrive and move on up.
Well, let me start, Jess. I'll set you, and then you can put it over the net. But I would say this. I would say the people that work here are, first of all, I'm honored to work here. I've been here 40 years, and I look at this as an honor to participate and to lead an organization within CB. And I would say this: my personal and professional life are so commingled that I don't have a strong start and stop where my friends stop at it's all kind of one. And because we have people here that are, I just respect so much. I learn from, this at the personal level, the professional level. And, a good example of that is just what we're going through right now with these fires in LA. I mean, the outpouring of support from the company to the people who have lost homes or have been displaced has been, not that of a company, but that of friends. And I think you can't fake it. You can't put your work hat on and then take it off at night. I mean, it's all commingled. And I think where Jessica has done an incredible job back to her responsibility of growing our market area and playing a role as a civic leader within CB, is she'll go into and meet with candidates that we want to have a part of our team. And I remember initially she'd say, well, how much do I need to know about the company? And I said, Jessica, at the end of the day, they need to trust you, no different than what you did in trusting me. And if you tell them that you're going to make sure that you're going to mentor them through and teach them the organization, and you're going to be there with them and for them, you're going to be very successful. And in fact, that's exactly what's happened. Her pitch is starting with telling her own personal story. And it starts with starting her family, and then it obviously evolves into all the services that we have and the things that we do and the great people we work with on a day-to-day basis. But it really starts with a personal story, because without trust, you really don't have much in any kind of relationship, personally or professionally. So I think this trust element here, which happens so naturally here. I mean, a lot of what we do is not on a contract. I mean, it's really this trust. It's putting forward a commitment and then following through on that commitment and then building that relationship based on a series of those successes. That's really what makes the world go around in a lot of cases around here. Jess?
Yes, everything Lou said, I'm just sort of like replaying our journey together, and thinking about when I started, and one of the things Lou asked me to do, and I'll bring this to present day with the fires, was we really wanted to take the example of the database, the homelessness, and scale that. And so what that looked like was, bringing me in and saying, you create this, with my support. Again, just speaking to how entrepreneurial our company is. You don't have people micromanaging, telling you how to do something. We bring in leaders and we support them developing their authentic leadership style, of which there are many here that we each then draw upon and become better ourselves. And so Lou's, one of his charge to me was like, let's scale this civic engagement work. Let's really create something more formal and uniform in our region, which is LA, Orange County, Inland Empire. And so what we did was we basically said, hey, we have infinite data and resources, pretty much, at our disposal. Bob Selenick is also always saying, hey, our data means nothing if it's not being put to work. And we know we have policymakers and government leaders who are, again, challenged by these huge problems without tools to solve them in terms of real-time information. And so it's very simple. What we said we're going to do is we're going to cull the data for each elected official, council member's district, a mayor's city, a county supervisor, and we're going to go meet. We have no ask. We're not going to show up angry, yelling about something, but instead we're going to gift you a very digestible overview of your district and your jurisdiction and try to provide you with some insights. And our goal is that we're here as a resource and that you're able to make better informed policy decisions based on whatever criteria is important to you, and to really become a partner. So when you're faced with some fast decision that you have to make, we're one place where you can go to get a source of information. And we have seen that over the course of the last 2 years explode. And people who would never think to be working with a quote corporation in communication, in conversation, productively, proactively, and it's working. And so when we look now to a situation like the devastation we've seen with the Palisades and Eaton fires, it just, to your point, Michael, actions are right. It's already in place. And so what that's looked like is Lou, agreeing to chair the Urban Land Institute, a national preeminent 2,000 members here locally of world-class experts. He's been able to redeploy that entire organization and mobilize those experts to provide technical assistance to our elected officials, because this is what we've been doing. And we have a roadmap, and there's the desire and the will of our business community to act. And we have the relationships with those in government. We've already been meeting with them, bringing forward timelines and phased approaches and experts in debris removal. And so you've seen what started as an idea that we had at the Jonathan Club over lunch really be able to scale real time in a massive crisis unlike we've seen ever in the history of our city, maybe our state, in terms of fire and disasters, and been able to mobilize. And that's sort of at a larger scale, but on the personal scale, Lou started convening 3 meetings a day. We had our senior leadership. We have no playbook for how to support our employees. And, what stuck with me, 2 things Lou said was, we're erring on the side of generosity, pay for their housing, pay for whatever we can do. We're showing up in meaningful ways. And I think what really sparked everyone into action was when he said, when you're at someone's house over the holidays, you don't ask. I don't tell my kids to ask if they can do the dishes, just go do the dishes. And if you're asking yourself if you should, you probably just should be doing that. And so we all applied that analogy to just show up for our employees, get donations, put together the gift baskets. Don't wait around waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. Show up, show up, show up. And, as we kind of have talked through, I think that's the intrinsic nature of the DNA of how we behave for our clients, for our employees, for the communities that we operate. We're just trying to show up. with no agenda other than to be of service.
And I would just add to that, Jess, that I could not do that if I didn't have a team that I absolutely trusted, that's going to make great judgment decisions and understand, have empathy to their surrounding, and be able to apply what's needed in that moment, because it's all different. It's not a one size fits all. And then listen, back to some of the social stuff, the social responsibility work we've done. We created that database which identifies every excess federal, state, county, city site out there that could be used for staging areas or for, potentially temporary housing and whatnot. It's also changed the way we've applied services. I mean, we're in a facilities management business, and Jessica was able to put together a work format where we're actually doing facilities management for shelters. It's something we've never done before anywhere in the world. But, she recognized that there's an opportunity here. An air conditioner is an air conditioner. A plumbing problem is a plumbing problem. So we've applied that use, and we're playing a role. We're helping. Same thing with finding, she's got a team that's actually looking at extended stay hotels to convert those to potential shelters. And we've done, just under 10 of those. So we've applied, our knowledge of real estate. And the homeless issue is not just a real estate issue by any means, but it's a part of the issue. And so we've applied what we know to part of the solution. We know it's not the whole solution, but it's a part of the solution. There's no script here. We look around, we figure out what would I want? What would I need, if I'm trying to accomplish this? So really understanding the why, really gets you quicker to the how.
Yeah, or other people, somebody said it once, it's the what, the so what, the now what. But the key to execution, right, is you guys, your purpose, why you exist, your mission, what business you're in, and your vision. Like, how is the world going to be different because of your work, right? A lot of people, they could jump right into execution and without thinking about that alignment of what we talked about.
Well, and a big part of it is figuring out what people need. And, is we have a little motto around here that if you use your ears and your mouth in proportion, you're probably going to be highly successful. And that is really listening, to what is needed rather than trying to, pitch something that you think might be needed. It's really listening to people and figuring out what is it that you really need here and how can I play that role? And let me execute on that. Because once we've done that, we're building a successful relationship, and there will be other opportunities for for us to maybe add information to point out things that somebody might be needing to think about. But it all starts with trust.
Lou, I love that you brought up the word trust, because it really makes me think about, America's best managed companies are the ones that really embrace Drucker's philosophies that I think are timeless. And the things that I think of from this conversation is you guys definitely have a clear mission and theory of business. You do know what business you're in. You do know who your customer is. You do know what your customer values. And then the strength of the organization really are your employees. And you're developing your employees. You're focusing on your employees. You're making sure that they have the right skills and the right skills for the jobs that they're in. And if they want to move through the organization, getting the opportunity to grow and advance. And then this part about the trust, right, exists because everybody is living the same set of core values. And I like Drucker would always say is when you think about these core set of values, he always said they're animated by the belief that an organization needs values as a human body needs vitamins and minerals. That's the healthiness of the organization. And when we think about your conversation and how timely it is with the tragedy that happened with the fires throughout Los Angeles, you were doing it before the fires, is you demonstrate social responsibility. You go above and beyond your walls, beyond your mission. And so when I think about your own journey, we think about this conversation that we've had today, and you probably got a chance, part of it's reflective, as I'd love that, the question I always love is maybe somebody else can learn from is, what would you tell your 20-year-old self if you could right now?
I don't know that I would change anything. I had the good fortune to have great parents. And so my parents gave me a lot of leeway to try new things and really build up my own personal confidence. And I had some tragedy in my life early on. I lost a brother actually to homelessness. So that became part of my North Star, and even looking at corporate social responsibility. But I remember just being incredibly supported by my parents. And so I brought that along into my management career, my brokerage career, whatever I have done at the company. And I think through that, I've developed a deep sense of empathy to work with people where I'm thinking about if I'm in that position, if I'm 2 years into this job, or if I am a brand new student out of school, how does the world look from that position? And how can I play a role either in direction, or in leadership, or in encouragement, to make sure that person's really successful. And so, I'm really, I'm very proud of our organization, and that we do have incredibly talented people that I have so much respect for, that all feel the same way. They really do. And we don't have, we just don't have people that we've got kind of would you want to go out to dinner with this person rule, right? They're interesting, they're highly skilled, they're honest, and respected. And I just think that it makes it easy to look forward to Monday morning.
For me, I think what I would have liked to be a little more clear on, and I don't think I don't think this impacted my decision making in my career, but I think when you're in your 20s, you think there's one way to accomplish what you care about. And for me, I thought that would be going into politics and government, and I did and dabbled in that, and I'm very proud.
You ran for mayor, Jessica. That's going into politics.
I did run for mayor. I lost my brain momentarily. I came back to planet Earth. No, in all seriousness, I'm very glad I did. But I would say, I think young people, just be open to, you can accomplish what you want and what you care about in a multitude of ways. There is no one way to do something, one right way. There's multiple ways. And I think when you are freed of the one way mentality and see multiple paths, or open to the paths that you don't see that would be exciting. I feel very fortunate that Lou, opened this door for me, because this would never have been something I would have considered for myself. When I announced to some people I was doing this, no one understood how I was, quote, abandoning all the work I had done. And I think what's really cool is this is just a different application of what I care about and what you can bring. And I think we all have that. And I think if we were all a little more open to exploring different places of work, sectors, industries, we'd probably be less siloed as a community. And so I that's one thing I think is really important, to not be afraid of pursuing a path that you may not think fully aligns, and rather spend that time figuring out how to align, because there's generally always a way to do so.
Congratulations to CBRE and your entire team. With that, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
All right. Bye-bye.
We thank you for listening to Doing the Right Things Well podcast. We'd also like to thank the Charles Koch Foundation for its generous funding to help make this podcast possible. The Charles Koch Foundation works to ensure all people have the opportunity to live a life of meaning and contribution based on their unique gifts and aptitudes. They do this by investing in the social entrepreneurs who can transform the institutions most responsible for lifelong learning, post-secondary education and business, and empowering people to engage in work that benefits everyone. To learn more about the Charles Koch Foundation, please visit charleskochfoundation.org. That's Charles, Koch Foundation.org. Please do subscribe to the Drucker Institute's YouTube, Spotify, and Apple podcast channels to listen to more episodes in this series.